What is up, guys? It's That's Game here, and today we are going to be looking at my Premier League predictions for the 2022-2023 season. I already know I've done terribly with my predictions in this video. I know I did awful. So we're going to take a look at them, we're going to run through them all, see if I got close with any of them, see if I did get any right, or see how many I got wrong, because I'm betting it's quite a few. So yeah, let's get into it, guys. So in at 20th, I predicted Bournemouth. Now that is a pretty standard prediction that I think a lot of people would have predicted Bournemouth to go down this season. I just could not see Bournemouth doing well, and yet, yeah, they did pretty well. They managed to stay up, so fair play to them. Actually, in 20th was Southampton, which is a shock to me because, as you'll see later on in the video, I predicted Southampton to finish around mid-table. And I thought Southampton were going to have a pretty decent season, but it just unravelled for them. The only one shining light for them was Ward-Prowse, and even he couldn't keep them up in the end. So yeah, in at 20th was Southampton. So in at 19th then, I predicted Nottingham Forest. I think the prediction of Nottingham Forest to go down last season was a pretty standard prediction. I think quite a few people would have predicted Notts Forest to go down last season. The amount of players they brought in summer, I just thought I could not see their team gelling, and that would have been a big problem for them. But no, they managed to survive. And in at 19th was actually Leeds. I think it was a really poor season from Leeds. They just fell apart towards the end of the season. They brought in Javi Garcia, and then like 4 games afterwards they sacked him for Big Sam, which was an appalling appointment. But yeah, I think a tough season from Leeds, but you never know. Hopefully they'll be back in the Premier League soon. So, in at 18th then, I predicted Everton to go down. I could not see Everton managing to stay up last season. With Frank Lampard at the helm, it really did not look like it was going to be a positive season for them. I know it came down to the last day, and yeah, they were really, really lucky to stay up in the end. However, unlucky was Leicester. Leicester actually finished in 18th, and it was such a poor season from them. They really did not do well in the summer transfer window. I think they brought in 1, maybe 2 players, and that really did not help them. I think they really had a poor season, and they can't be disappointed with where they finished. I think they'll come back up, though. I think Leicester will be straight back up to the Premier League next season. I predicted Fulham to finish 17th last season. I could not see Fulham having a good season in the Premier League. I thought that maybe the previous actions of chop and changing the managers would really affect them, but Marco Silva did really well with his Fulham team. In 17th, however, was Everton. Now, as we've just been through, I really thought Everton were going to get relegated last season, but on the last day, they managed to survive. But I think next season is going to be another tough season for Everton, and they really need to put their ideas up if they want to stay in the Premier League. In 16th, I predicted Brentford. I could not see the Bees having a good season. I massively underestimated them. I can definitely see Brentford keeping their top half of the table finish next season, as long as they improve in the transfer market. The team which actually finished 16th was Notts Forest. As previously mentioned, I couldn't see Forest staying up because of the sheer number of players they brought in last summer, but they did exceptionally well towards the end of the season, and they will definitely hope to improve for the next. In 15th, I thought it would be Leeds. As I have said, I didn't think they would have a good season, but I could see them surviving. Leeds just could not get firing, and injuries as well as a lack of form cost them dearly. Bournemouth was the team which actually came in 15th. The Cherries were safe a couple weeks before the final day, and that is a real credit to manager Gary O'Neill and his players. Hopefully Bournemouth can make it through the next season and still be a Premier League team by the end of it. I really had hope for Southampton last season, which is why I placed them in the 14th spot. I always seem to think that Southampton can do well, but they never seem to reach their full potential, something which definitely cost them last season. West Ham actually finished in the 14th spot. The Irons definitely seem to prioritise their European campaign, which culminated in a 2-1 win against Fiorentina last night, making them the second winners of the UEFA Conference League. Next season, that means West Ham will have Europa League football, which they will definitely need to improve their squad for. In at 13th then, I predicted Leicester City. I thought that Leicester were going to have a really decent season, to be honest, but they didn't help themselves by not improving in the transfer window. But I still thought they'd managed to survive. I was wrong there. Wolves actually finished in 13th, and it was quite a disappointing season from them. Wolves just haven't looked like that same team which came up from the Championship all those seasons ago. But I think a big clear out is needed in this transfer window in order for them to make their way back up the Premier League table. In 12th, I wrongly predicted Brighton. I thought that with Brighton losing some valuable first team players like Bissouma and Cucurella and not bringing in many new signings that they'd struggle. But of course, I was wrong there. Chelsea were actually the team which finished 12th, and I think that's solely down to Todd Boehly. He replaced Thomas Tuchel within a few games, and then he replaced him with Graham Potter, who he then sacked, and replaced him with Frank Lampard. That is quite arguably one of the worst seasons in Chelsea's history, and they will definitely be looking at improving for next season. I thought Aston Villa were going to be a dark horse team last season, and I was right. I just didn't predict them to finish as high as they did. I didn't rate Steven Gerrard as a manager, so I think that played a huge part in the reason why I didn't rate them as highly. Crystal Palace were actually the team which finished 11th in the Premier League last season. Replacing Patrick Vieira with Roy Hodgson seemed to be a strange move, but eventually it turned out to be the right one. Palace definitely need a new manager who will continue to get the best out of their players like Roy Hodgson did. I was only one away with my prediction for Crystal Palace, with them actually finishing in 11th. I thought that they were another dark horse team, but they just couldn't get firing under Patrick Vieira, and Roy Hodgson managed to save their season. In 10th was actually Fulham. The London club were a team which I thought would be in a relegation battle and managed to narrowly survive, but they did extremely well last season and managed to claim a top half of the table finish. Fulham will definitely need to improve in the transfer window if they want to move up the Premier League table next season. Into 9th, and I predicted Wolves wrong again. As I have said, I thought that Wolves would have a really good season, but Bruno Lage couldn't get his team up the table. They replaced him with Julian Lopetegui, and he managed to salvage their season. In 9th was actually Brentford. The Bees really performed last season and managed to climb 4 places from the previous season. With Brentford only bringing in 1 player in the transfer window, I couldn't see them improving. How wrong I was. In at 8, I predicted Newcastle. I thought with the new ownership and new players brought in that Newcastle would massively improve on their league finish, and I was right. I just didn't predict them to have Champions League football at the end of it. Spurs actually finished 8th, which is confusing for me because Antonio Conte could not get a tune out of his team, even though they signed big in the transfer window. He eventually capitulated and Spurs just fell apart. They couldn't get a positive result in any of their games, meaning that they miss out on Europe next season. I thought that West Ham were going to be consistent and finish 7th 2 seasons in a row, but with the Hammers prioritising their Conference League campaign, it's easy to see why their league form faltered. Aston Villa finished in 7th place, and I underestimated them, but what a great turnaround Unai Emery managed. He took them out of the bottom half of the table and all the way to Conference League football next season, and they will definitely be a team to watch in the upcoming campaign. I predicted Chelsea to finish in 6th, but it actually turned out to be Brighton. In 12th, I predicted Brighton, but it actually turned out to be Chelsea. I definitely must have got my wires crossed somewhere there. As a Manchester United fan, I had real hope for Erik ten Hag last season. I thought that a top 4 finish would be too much to ask, however, but he managed to get the squad firing and finishing 3rd, although there were a few bumps along the way. Actually in 5th was Liverpool. Jurgen Klopp's team really struggled with injuries and a lack of form last season. Selling Sadio Mane turned out to be another huge downfall in their season, and Europa League football is what they'll be playing next season. In my prediction video, I said that this year is going to be Arsenal's year, and then I went and predicted them to finish 4th. They made some great signings in the window, and Arteta's team did amazingly last season, but they had spells where results didn't go their way, which resulted in them finishing 2nd. In 4th was Newcastle. As I have said, the Geordie club did fantastically to get Champions League football, and it is something they should be proud of. They're definitely going to be an interesting watch in Europe next season. As I've already said, I thought that Spurs looked like a real team after the transfer window closed, but they just couldn't play like one. They fell apart in traditional Spurs fashion, and they will definitely face problems next season. Manchester United finishing 3rd is huge testament to Erik ten Hag and his coaching. After the first 2 games of the season, it didn't seem like last season was going to be a good one. But finishing 3rd is a huge accomplishment, along with being the Carabao Cup winners. Somehow I didn't predict Manchester City to finish 1st. Whether it's because I didn't want them to achieve 3 league titles in a row, or because I thought I was being clever, I don't know. Pep always finds a way to make his teams better than the last, and City are on course to winning a treble, with only Inter Milan standing in their way. This is being recorded on the day of the Champions League final, so hopefully Inter Milan can pull off that win. Arsenal finishing 2nd was a really big achievement for their squad. However, being league leaders for well over 75% of the season and losing out because of a few poor games really shows that you can never rest in a league like the Premier League. In 1st then, I predicted Liverpool. I thought that Darwin Núñez would be an instant hit and he would help Liverpool towards the top spot, but I was obviously wrong again. The Scouse club couldn't get up the table, and even though they had good results here and there, on the whole they weren't good enough. Manchester City winning the Premier League 3 times in a row is an achievement they should be proud of. They are also the FA Cup winners and are heavy favourites to win the Champions League and finally win that elusive treble. I should have predicted Manchester City to finish 1st, but for some reason I couldn't see them doing it. Yep, so there you have it. I managed to predict 0 out of 20 predictions correct. I got close with a couple of them and that weird thing with Chelsea and Brighton, but on the whole I managed to get none out of 20 correct. Hopefully I'll be able to do better in my predictions for the upcoming season, but you'll have to wait and see for those. I even predicted the Golden Boot winner wrong. I thought that Harry Kane would be able to win the Golden Boot last season, and with his 30 goals, that would have been good enough, if not for Erling Haaland with his monstrous record-breaking 36 goals in the Premier League. Now that is some insane stat. I really thought Harry Kane was going to do it, and 30 goals is good enough to do it in pretty much all of the previous Premier League seasons. But Erling Haaland was a different monster for Manchester City this season, winning him the Golden Boot. I also predicted the first manager to be sacked wrong. I thought that it would be Frank Lampard from Everton, but he wasn't sacked until January 23rd. The winner, or should I say loser, was Scott Parker. He was sacked from Bournemouth on August 30th after his poor run of results. In my prediction video, I also thought I'd go a step further by trying to predict the FA Cup and Carabao Cup winners. I didn't choose just one club because I thought that might be too hard, so I actually chose Tottenham, West Ham and Arsenal to be my predictions to win the FA Cup and Carabao Cup. I was wrong with all three of them, with Manchester United winning the Carabao Cup and Manchester City winning the FA Cup. I did terribly in my prediction video. I got nothing right. I didn't get really that close with anything. So yeah, it was a real shambolic video for me. Let me know how you guys did in the comment section. Go back and watch my prediction video just to laugh at it really. My previous video I tried to predict transfers for Premier League clubs, so go and watch that one. It's quite interesting. There are a few interesting picks in there. So yeah, thanks for watching guys. I hope you enjoyed and we'll see you next time.